This week I got a little something fun for you from my past. Right here, in this folder of that I got from Sega back in the day. You know, Sega for the 90s. Sega does it all. Look at this. This is great, right? Anyways, I got a special treat for you. And this is the first issue. The very first issue of GameMasters magazine, which is the magazine that my friend Eric and myself made back in 1990. We were so excited about making this thing. So here we are with the November 1990 issue of GameMasters magazine that features 7 pages of Sega excitement. I mean, could you even tell that we were big fans of Sega at the time? So what do we got here? We got new releases, Target Earth, Golden Axe, and awesome hints and tips. Can you believe that we tried to charge $1 for this magazine? I mean, 1990, $1 for 7 pages, and I think there's a reason why we sold 3 issues of this magazine. And we actually got authorized to sell it in my grade school library. So here we go. So this was all done on my friend Eric, who I did the magazine with. His older sister had a word processor, so made all this stuff here. So table of contents. You know, we got new releases, Genesis game reviews, a Fantasy Zone review, which was, you know, at the time it was already a Sega classic. Super Genesis hints and Super Master System hints. Most of these hints we probably just pulled out of other magazines we were reading at the time. So let's go ahead and read this. Welcome to our first issue of GameMasters magazine. This issue is packed with reviews on excellent games like Golden Axe, Fantasy Zone, and much more. It also contains some of the best hints around, such as Invincibility and Target Earth. Plus many other games are discussed. So what's kind of interesting is that there is a invincibility code for Target Earth that we discovered by accident. The game is ridiculously difficult. All you need to do to activate the invincibility is to press start on the second controller. I must have had it plugged in and someone sat on the controller, because honestly we thought that the game glitched. And you know, it was kind of amazing after it was so difficult to play this game. But we thought it was way more in depth. Essentially, anything that we made up would be true for it as long as we press start on the second controller. So we went through all these steps saying like, oh, I think I did this. So look at this. GameMasters is a monthly publication. Yeah, right. Please send $1.50 for 1 issue, or $9 for 6 issues. I mean, look at this. It's not only that, it's like $1 on the cover, but it would cost you more to subscribe. But I mean, 1990, I was 12. All right, so let's get into it. Let's look at the new releases. So probably the biggest complaint a Sega owner has is the lack of games available to the public. Well, hold on to your control pads, because as of October 1990, Sega or third-party companies will have released 3 to 6 games every month. Are these games going to be any good? You bet. You can't help but to think that Nintendo must shudder after seeing such fabulous games like Ghouls and Ghosts, Revenge of Shinobi, and Forgotten Worlds. Now, to briefly describe some of the new Genesis games. This game's Caesar. I don't even know if that came out. It's a game similar to Risk, the world-famous board game. Mickey Mouse, look at this. Mickey Mouse was find his way past the land of illusion to save Minnie, then had the final battle with the Wicked Witch. Buster Douglas knockout boxing. One of the most realistic boxing games ever, named Final Blow in Japan. You have to work up your rank while fighting 5 fictional world champions and hopefully become the world champion. Shadow Dancer, based on Sega's Smash arcade hit. This game features awesome graphics and sound. A group of terrorists have invaded. Shinobi and his dog must fight through several stages once again to save the world. Strider, based on the arcade hit, this 8 mega video sensation, features superb graphics and sound definition as your character ventures through the world to destroy Russia's mechanized army. Alright, so here's my first review for Revenge of Shinobi. I like that it says reporter. Like I got to be a reporter for a minute. I remember specifically sitting in my childhood bed at night, like I could not figure out how to write, like a review. I mean, I read magazines all the time, I had an idea, and I kind of still struggle with writing. Like writing is, the script process is the most difficult thing for me when it comes to making videos for our channel. So my workaround for that is to write about, a bunch of the levels. And I probably had the manual right there, like I definitely had beaten the game at this point, but I probably just had the manual and thought, hey, I'm just gonna go through each level and write a little blurb about it. He's back, but this time he's out for revenge. He's Joe Musashi, aka the Shinobi. Now he is after a larger team of criminals called the Neo-Zed. So get on your green robe, not put on. So get on your green robe and get your sword ready for some fast action. District 1 takes you to the Ibaraki province, Japan, as you walk through the bamboo garden. Look out for Omote, Kabuto, and Hachi. And shuriken catching, and the shuriken catching dog. As you enter the house of confusion, look out for sharp bamboo. Now you can face the mighty samurai, Blue Lobster. District 2 puts you in Tokyo. You must now cross the deadly waterfall and jump from log to log to make it to this back street where you jump to the top of a building only to fight the triple shuriken throwing Shadow Dancer. District 3 is the military base. And the action rally starts to really heat up. Look at this. So this, if it didn't say rally, it would say the action really starts to really heat up for you. After walking through the airport, you find gunners everywhere. And curls take off in a cargo jet. You ride in an elevator to the top of the vault, which has lasers guarding it. District 4 pictures the junkyard in Detroit and has some gunners, and has more gunners than you can imagine. In the motor mill, there's not just gunners, but also steaming hot molten sludge and engine blocks in the side yard. The master attacker is waiting to throw some cars. District 5 shows the area code 818, which takes you right to the top of the laser screen. It almost makes no sense. District 5 shows the area code 818, which takes you right to the top of the laser scrapper, only to reach the freeway, where cars come speeding at you on top of a missile truck, and you must destroy the eyes. I mean, you almost think that I watch too many game players' game tapes. And then I say, I'm gonna let you find out the rest of the levels yourself. I'd like you to know that this game has it all. Great graphics, sound, and gameplay. More reviews to come. Alright, so this one is from my friend Eric, who wrote this review of Golden Axe. It seems like there's probably a lot more going on here than there was in mine. But I'm curious. You have just gotten home from your local toy store or arcade thinking this version of Golden Axe might be close, but nothing can beat the arcade. You plop in your Sega Genesis version of Golden Axe, the title screen appears, and you're off. Golden Axe is another pixel-perfect Sega Genesis arcade translation from Sega that is hard to believe. It's so good, in fact, partially because Sega has added 2 more levels that aren't even found in the arcades. Also, Sega added other options such as Duel, which can be played with 2 players fighting each other at the same time, or 1 player trying to work up his or her own rank. In the beginner mode, an easier 3-level version of the arcade mode in which you must fight Death Adder Jr. at the end of stage 3. A sound test enables you to hear all the tunes that Golden Axe has to offer. All this plus much, much more, making this Golden Axe the best one yet. I highly recommend it. I mean, I think that it was just this version and the arcade version. I don't think that the Genesis version is probably better than the arcade version. But, okay. Oh, here we go. Here's a review of Target Earth. When you pay $50 for a shooter, you expect great graphics, sound, and a great storyline. And most of all, fun. Target Earth, unlike its competitors, has several twists such as the number of weapons and items. Also, you have the unique storyline and the intermissions. Remember when, the cinemas, when cutscenes were called cinemas or intermissions? It appears that an alien race attacked Earth and all her colonies before she could fight back. The only thing known about this alien race was that they called themselves Chorn. And they want, or is it Corn? It might be Corn. And they want to turn everyone and everything into cyborgs. Dang. Suddenly, when all hope seems lost, you, commander of the Earth Defense League Assault Suit Unit, that's a mouthful. Commander of the Earth Defense League Assault Suit Unit must rid these aliens of the solar system. Not rid the solar system of these aliens, but you must rid the aliens of the solar system. With 12 feet of armor and the most powerful weapons known to man. The graphics in Target Earth are mediocre, and in the first 3 stages, a dark feeling sets over the game. Never fear, improvement gradually develops. You gotta think about that. Never fear, because improvement gradually develops. The sound, on the other hand, is extraordinary. The tunes keep up with the action and it uses the full capability of the Genesis 10-channel sound. I mean, it does have a great soundtrack. All this, plus 8 levels of play and much more, make Target Earth a great game. Oh, here we go. Here's me with a Fantasy Zone review. On the market now. Stage 1. Plowleaf is a green planet with mountains and grass everywhere. But don't bother with the scenery. Keep your eyes on your ship. At the end of this level is a leaf-spewing wood monster. Stage 2. Tabus. The action is really hot on this fiery planet. Look out for this pencil-shaped assworm. Look out for this pencil-shaped assworm. and the winged chamba at the end of this round is a creature with cells around it. Stage 3, Ladoon. As the name implies, this sand dune covered planet is very difficult. The boss is a many laser spaceship. Stage 5, Polaria. Ice beams cover this entire planet. Look out for the fish-like enemy that tries to land on you. Okay, so here we are with the codes, and here's how we thought the Target Earth invincibility worked. Because keep in mind that all you really need to do is press start on the second controller. On controller 1, press and hold all 3 buttons, while on controller 2, you press start rapidly. Do this whenever you want to. Just do it whenever you want to. Phantasy Star 2, invincibility in Phantasy Star 2. It's really just a way to avoid random battles. But I don't know if going in and out of the menu is more obnoxious than the amount of battles in Phantasy Star 2. I don't know. It's close. Here's a code for Super Thunderblade. It's called Live and never die. Live and never die. Put the game on hard and stay at any corner and you won't die. This only stands through level 3. But I mean, the code says live and never die. But it only works through to the 3rd level. Next is the level select for Golden Axe. Press to the bottom left corner while holding B and pressing start. Do this while selecting a character. A number should appear at the top right hand corner. After you use your first continue, hold to the upper left hand corner, then press button 1 and 2 at the same time. It doesn't make any sense. Here's an ending code for Herzog's Y. Beat the base and win. I mean, is it the ending code or is it the last level code? I don't know. Alright, so here's some codes for Zillion. I guess you put that into the computer. And then there's a code for Alex Kidd in High Tech World to start outside. You know, that's it after the whole puzzle, and then you get into like the action segment. That's the code to it. So, you know, I don't know. It kind of gets worse once you get outside, I think. So anyways, this is page 6. Look at this. And this is bull. Look at this. 7 pages, it says right here. 7 pages of Sega excitement. So I guess we're not counting the table of contents and the editor's note, you know, paragraph. And the attempt to make you charge more for a subscription than the cover price. So there you go. One of a very few remaining copies of Game Masters magazine.
Hello everybody. So I actually just got done watching Coury's Genesis Games segment for the previous video log, and it kind of immediately inspired me to feel like I want to talk about a bunch of games right now too. So I'm going to hold myself to do this quickly, but I've actually got here, I believe, all of my third-party N64 games, you know, kind of overlooking the fact that some of Rare's N64 games were actually published by Rare themselves and not Nintendo. You know, N64, for a long time, I felt kind of alone in liking the system. The internet has kind of brought the N64 fans out of the woodwork, and there are clearly a lot of us out there, but there's still so many people that think, oh, the N64 has like 2 good games, 3 good games, and, you know, had no third-party support. You know, you think to how Nintendo's third-party support went over the years, and especially with like Wii U, you know, I mean, gosh, N64 still had a lot of third-party support and a lot of original games made for it that, you know, were not necessarily ports on other systems. So this is a lot of games. This is what I have, and there's so many more. So I'm just going to really quickly go through just all these games and just say a word or two. So, like, what's this? This is one, I think this is the first, this is the Japanese version of the, I think the first Goemon, maybe it's the second. No, this is the second. This is the second Goemon on N64. This is a side-scrolling platformer that's a lot of fun. When I first played it, I didn't like it as much as the 3D one, but I replayed it a few years ago. It's a really good, actually very tough platformer. Very tough, very challenging, very fun, great soundtrack. Amazing soundtrack. Here we've got Doom 64. I have not played through this yet. I've played a little bit of it. I do know that it's actually pretty well regarded. I've really kind of warmed up to the old Doom games relatively recently. And, you know, this is an original, unique Doom, and it's considered very good. So I'm looking forward to spending some time with that. Let's see. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. I've got a real soft spot for this game. I was kind of introduced to it, you know, in the first few months of the system's life when I had very little exposure to Star Wars. I had relatively recently seen Return of the Jedi, and I was starting to get very interested, and around this time, I became just a gigantic Star Wars fan. And I feel like the way this game explores the universe and sort of takes you to various levels and, you know, fight enemies like IG-88 and whatnot. It's cool. You get to see things in a way that you might not expect, and it's, you know, certainly it's dated, but I still think it's pretty interesting. Another Star Wars game, Rogue Squadron. You know, believe it or not, I feel this game is a little overrated. I liked it. I got a lot of the gold medals or platinum medals or whatever. But I don't know. It always felt more sluggish to me than, like, say, Star Fox 64. It's just not quite my style of flying shooting game. But, you know, this is actually considered a very major third-party game for the N64. But not one of my favorites. Actually, I don't have it anymore, but I really liked Battle for Naboo, although I hear it's got bad performance problems. I didn't really think of it back in the day. Rampage World Tour. I actually just recently picked this up. This was the first Rampage game I ever played. Friend rented it a couple of times, and I remember us having a lot of fun, so I am looking forward to revisiting it. I think this was also on, like, PS1, though. Although, I don't know, maybe it came out on this first? I can't remember. Quest 64. I've actually not really bothered too hard to clean it up because, well, I did try. This was, I think it was a rental. It was on there pretty good. I'm kind of an apologist for this game. I don't think it's great, but I think it's good enough. It's very simple. I think it is a victim of the times that it came out in, when RPGs were really picking up in the West. Final Fantasy VII, you know, telling this big, huge story with these big, huge cutscenes and things, and every big, long game, and every game had to be long and big and worth your money and stuff, and you know, had to be this 50, 60-hour epic. And, you know, here's this relatively short, very basic, no cutscenes. You just walk up to people and talk to them. Guess what? That's like freaking Dragon Quest. You know, no one complained that Dragon Quest was just talking to people and wandering around the world and fighting monsters. It's a very simple RPG, has a relatively unique battle system with a kind of cool use of elemental magic. It's not a bad game. If you like good old-fashioned simple RPGs, it is not a bad game. Rayman 2, I actually got this when I wrote for, like, you know, an N64, well, it started off as an N64 fan site, and then it kind of became like a general fan site, you know, run by teenagers. Somehow the guy who ran it had, like, contacts at various game companies, and I intentionally asked for bad games because I knew that I could get them more quickly and I could review them, and it didn't matter how good they were. If it was relatively new, I could take it to Funkoland and get $30 store credit. Like, that's how I got a ton of games, is just getting these review copies that were sent to me and trading them like that. This is the one time I asked for a good game, and guess what? By the time Ubisoft actually had spare copies to send us, a friend of mine had already reviewed for the site the Dreamcast version of Rayman 2. So I didn't even have to do anything with this. But I enjoyed it. I really want to replay it. I think I would have more respect for it now than I did then. I liked it. But, you know, it's like, it's not Mario. But I did really like it, and I want to revisit it. I have the Dreamcast version now. I'm not sure which one I should replay, actually. Resident Evil 2, have not had this version for too long, and I will be playing through it because I want to do a video early next year about all the versions of Resident Evil 2. I think that's going to be very interesting. Very interesting. Rocket Robot on Wheels. This is published by Ubisoft, but it's developed by Sucker Punch, who went on to do Sly Cooper and Infamous, and now Ghost of Tsushima for Sony. And, you know, it's, I believe, a pretty well-regarded platformer. I have not, you know, played it beyond messing around with the save files that were already on this cartridge. But I'm looking forward to it. Shadowgate 64. You know, I've sort of messed around this game a little bit. I just think it's sort of got an interesting texture and feel to it. I kind of like the feel of, like, you know, you're sort of standing in this area and you look around, and I don't know, it kind of feels like a good evolution of the Shadowgate concept to me, and I'm looking forward to playing it more. It looks like this was from Lightning Video in Valdez, North Carolina. I don't know where that is. Space Station Silicon Valley. This is a game that I wanted for a long time and didn't see. I think a friend rented it. I just like never saw it at stores. It's not like a terribly expensive game, like $20-some. But finally found it. I actually see it relatively commonly now. But this is by Take-Two, or I guess published by Take-Two. This was developed by DMA Design, if I'm not mistaken, and who went on to become Rockstar North. And you can control tons and tons and tons of robotic animals in this game. And they all have like these different abilities. It's sort of like a little, I don't know if platformer is the word, but it's sort of a puzzle, character-based puzzle, walk around, sort of figure out how to just poke at the world and do things. It's just a unique, interesting game. Was well received when it came out, and looking forward to properly playing through it. Top Gear Rally, I think this is actually the most recent N64 game I got. I've sort of played around with it a little bit, and it's like so oddly smooth for an N64 game. Although I think it's only 30 frames per second, but it's like, it feels very consistent in a way you don't normally expect from N64. But I ran this game a couple of times back in the day, really liked it. I am not really a car person at all, but I kind of enjoyed a few of the car-based racing games as rentals on the N64, and this is one of the ones that I always just kind of thought back to. Turok, friends rented this, maybe owned it, I can't remember. I watched them play it a bit, didn't really play it much, but what really piqued my interest and got me kind of thinking back to wanting this game, which I got in the past year, was when John Linneman did a DF Retro on Metroid Prime, and I guess some of the talent from Turok went on to Metroid Prime. And you can see like a lot of the feel of the platforming mechanics and jumping and stuff. You can see the evolution in from this to Metroid Prime. That made me think, oh, I really want to go through that more properly. Let's start digging from this side of the pile. Chameleon Twist, I did a video on it, you know. Easy, fun, little platformer. Nothing crazy special, but good and interesting. A good rental, as we called it back in the day. Here's a couple of the cruising games. Cruising USA. Just played a ton with a friend. I loved it. Did a stupid video on it. Cruising World. Didn't play it until, closer to the time that I did the video, but also quite good. Let's see. Here's the American version of the 3D Mystical Ninja, starring Goemon. I absolutely love this game. Just incredible sense of humor. I've wanted to do a big video on this for a long time, and haven't gotten around to it, but this, it's just a good 3D platformer. It was a great third-party game to come out in that time when I guess there was a bit of an N64 drought. I mean, as there often was, let's be fair, between the big releases that people knew were good, but then we had third-party stuff like this that people were maybe ignoring. But this is just such a fun 3D platformer action game, and just maybe the best soundtrack on the system. Unbelievable soundtrack. Unbelievable. So good. Play it. Definitely play it. Quake, I have very limited experience with Quake, but I kind of have an interest in some of the earlier ports of shooters that ended up on N64, like Doom and stuff. Even Hexen, kind of interested in maybe getting that someday. But this is the one with that anti-aliasing filter, which just makes it kind of an interesting stuff for us to have for demonstration purposes. This is the Japanese one. Just got that thanks to Jimmy Hoppa. Mischief Makers. I don't remember my Mischief Makers cart looking this not amazing. I believe it was like a Christmas gift from a friend a long time ago. Used copy. This is an amazing game. You know, I love to demonstrate the Ultra HDMI with it just because it's got such clean pixel art. And it plays very uniquely. The controls are a little weird, but once you kind of get used to them, it's just some of that good old treasure weirdness. I think this is the only game that Enix published for the N64 in the US. I could be mistaken, but I think it's the only one they published in the US for the N64. But just, it was such a novelty at the time, renting it with friends, because 2D platforming on N64, it's like, oh yes, this isn't quite dead yet. So it was good to see. Good to see that kind of take on the genre. And then I talked about this before, Goemon's Great Adventure, the side-scrolling one. You know, much greater appreciation for this in more recent years. What we got on this end over here? Beetle Adventure Racing. This game is great. It's fun to this day to just pop in for a bit. I don't know the shortcuts as well as I used to, but this, you know, you only play as Volkswagen Beetles, and I think there's maybe 6 stages, maybe only 5 or 6 stages. But they've got so many paths and so much detail going on. If I remember right, I think it is published by Electronic Arts, but I think it was developed by Paradigm or Paradigm, as I call them back in the N64 days, who did Pilot Wing 64. This game is just a lot of fun. Just a lot of care went into the level designs, and there's just so much fun stuff going on. So many shortcuts to take. Excellent battle mode in this. Better than the battle mode in any Mario Kart. Fight me. Better than the battle mode in any Mario Kart. Me and my friends played it so much. Body Harvest, another DMA Designs game. I think it came out before Space Station Silicon Valley. I can't remember. I remember seeing this in Nintendo Power before the N64 came out. And this game is so cool. Huge expansive worlds. You can really see like how where you know, the connection to like Grand Theft Auto and stuff comes from, because there's so many different vehicles and airplanes and stuff you can get into. Pretty difficult game. I mean, the levels are gigantic, and you fight these bug aliens. Got a very moody sort of soundtrack. It's a little, you know, kind of stiff and clunky, but so interesting just how huge it is. Like, it, you know, it's a game that you have to give a little time to appreciate it. Don't be turned off immediately. It's a cool game once you delve into it, and it's, you know, it's unique for the time. Castlevania, where is, do I got? Yeah, I got old Legacy of Darkness here. I mentioned these games several times before. I like them. I was not interested in them until a friend recommended them, and you know, this is kind of like almost a prototype, and this is more of like a fully, I mean, it's a finished game, but this is more polished, better frame rate and stuff. Has more characters, but you can also play as the 2 characters in this and basically go to the same levels, but they're kind of tweaked. This is more like the definitive edition, I guess. And it's a little bit pricey, but I think they're good games. They are Castlevania 3D platforming action translated to 3D pretty darn decently, in my opinion. You know, don't believe the hate. All right, we're getting almost done here. Bomberman Hero, I'm in the middle of this game. I should be doing like lunchtime streams on this or something to finish it. I played on stream. Really like it so far. It's good platformer. And Cruising Exotica. This is the one where you just like could just like flip like crazy. Very, very fun game. Very fun game. A Japanese version of Harvest Moon 64. I got this when I was in Japan because it's like so cheap over there. And I borrowed the American version from a friend, which is much more expensive. I beat it. I liked it. I didn't like the Super Nintendo one very much. I did not like it. I thought 64 was a lot better. And I just kind of got this to represent it as a game that I've beaten in my collection, even though I would never like actually be able to play the Japanese version. But it's just a thing to have, you know. Chameleon Twist 2. Yeah, it's Chameleon Twist 2. The World Is Not Enough. This was, you know, it was pretty well reviewed when it came out. It's like, you know, kind of an attempt to recapture GoldenEye by Eurocom, who I think developed at least some of the cruising games, or at least ported them to N64. And, you know, I played a little bit of this recently just to get a clip for the Perfect Dark video. It's, I don't think it's really aged very well. But at the time, it was cool to get this, something that was trying to live up to GoldenEye. You know, kind of after, you know, Tomorrow Never Dies ended up not being what people wanted and not on the system people wanted it to be on. So, and here we've got Wonder Project J2. I've wanted to do a video on Wonder Project J and Wonder Project J2 for a long time. Games, the first one's on Super Nintendo. I haven't played through either of them yet, but I remember seeing this in Nintendo Power. You know, it was a game that never came out here, but I just remember being amazed by the artwork in it. It's got very cool pixel art graphics. Large, well-animated sprites. It's kind of an adventure game where you sort of command these robot sort of puppet characters, I guess, and I don't know, teach them how to live and love or something like that. I don't know. But they just look beautiful. Published by Enix, and gosh, I gotta get around to playing them. This has a fan translation. You know, you don't really think of fan translations on N64 very much, but here's a game with a fan translation. And lastly here we got Winback, which is, I did a video on it years ago, how it's, you know, relatively early cover shooter, and of that style that, you know, kind of Gears of War popularized, and it's made by Omega Force, who does like all the Dynasty Warriors and Hyrule Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors and Dragon Quest Warriors and that kind of stuff. You know, they kind of went on to do that. This is definitely not an amazing game, but just interesting for the time. There is a PS2 version as well. So, I mean, that's what I got here. A bunch of N64 third-party games that, you know, hey, I think are pretty worthwhile in their own right. Some that I've haven't gotten to yet. Some that I've enjoyed for years. So, you know, N64, you know, it's got a lot more for it than a lot of people are willing to admit.